This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of bringing from Dallas, Texas, by way of Canada, into the meal industry. You will know about Icon, Todd Abrams. Good to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you, Pete. I appreciate the opportunity.
You got it. So, look, there's been obviously a lot going on in the food delivery space. You know, this isn't on video, but it looks like you work out every now and again. So, you know, you've been a serial entrepreneur from what I see on your LinkedIn. So maybe give us the abridged version on, you know, where you started, how you got to here, and then how you said, hey, I'm going all in, on Icon Meals.
Yeah, for me, it's always been really never worked for anyone. So sort of that entrepreneurial bug from early on. Grew up in a weird industry in Canada. My dad owns funeral homes and cemeteries. So I came from that sort of background. First company I had started off in the software industry in that space. And it was really more before the time for
funeralexchange.com.
Yeah, it was funeralexchange.com. And then we got acquired into a company called Old Door Solutions, but we were one of the first companies to build the funeral management software. Back then, the funeral directors didn't have websites, blah, blah, blah. So fast forward that, we built probably about 16,000 websites over those years. Our funeral management software is still used today, but we were one of the first companies to tie into the hospitals, death care certificates, pre-need insurance. We did a bunch of memorialization products, etc. Ended up being acquired. And then we sold that company to Stewart Enterprises, or Keystone Group, which is a publicly traded consolidator. From there, we spun out another company I had called Layer Technologies, and that really came from us building up these funeral home management apps. We needed to host them, so we started hosting apps, a little bit of cloud computing, and that was really sort of the company I had for 14 years. So you guys probably all know, you've heard WordPress. So we were the first guys to host WordPress back in the days, so Barry and Matt. When Matt was still at CNET, before he actually started the huge company. He started with us. They had about 2 servers, and in 2014, when we exited that company, they had, let's just say, quite a few more. But we did a lot of back in the day there, PCI compliance. We had Computer Associates, a bunch of other companies. We were an early adopter in the cloud computing space. I did a lot of cybersecurity federal work. My partner in that company for 9 of my 14 years was Excel KKR. So raised money with them, did quite a few different acquisitions, about 4 companies over those 14 years. And in 2014, we were supposed to sell it to Silver Lake Partners. Ended up through some internal fun stuff with, let's call it people and different things, ended up selling it to DataPipe, who then sold to Rackspace another year later.
When you were working with KKR Excel, what were you doing for them? Were you working with them to find deals, or they were?
They were an investor in us, so they were our private equity. We raised a good chunk of capital with them, and then over those 9 of those 14 years, they brought us a bunch of deal flow, right? So we bought a couple other companies, added services companies, added a security company in there, and then brought some other, I'll call it, bigger guns in there, really to sort of grow that. But that company had roughly about 200 employees. So
we when I was in business school, started a company called Iron Planet that got funded by KKR Excel back in the day, which you were in the funeral business originally. I was in the used heavy construction industry for a hot second. So it's like I'm waking up and helping more people live better, healthier lives than making sure like a highway gets paved, more economically. So I'll take the road I'm on.
Same here. So really, Icon was more. I grew up not being as in good shape I am now. I grew up being the fat kid. Called my nickname for many years used to be Lumpy. So it's really grew up playing sports, played junior hockey all my life in Canada, etc. But I just thought I love working out and stuff. But I thought calories were calories, and McDonald's and beer and everything was of the same sex. So Icon's really more a passion project for me. So when we started that in 2014, I really believe food can change people's lives. And also from a business standpoint, I've always had to have 2 things in any of my businesses. 1, residual recurring revenue, and 2, I'll call it a solution to a problem. And our solution was really that element of convenience, as everyone, other businesses, et cetera, live that healthy lifestyle, that fast-paced lifestyle, right? And still people have to eat. So from that standpoint, if we can combine a convenient option. And one of the key things was there's many other companies doing sort of what we do. I had some friends that had meal prep companies, and I just didn't like what they were doing with the food. A lot more preservatives, a lot of different things that I'm real picky on. And so that was sort of how we started. We started building Icon Meals in 2014, the end of 2014, with sort of breaking it down and doing custom meals. And that's really more on the dietary side, specific macros, etc.
So I used to have access to my dad's change machine. So I used to hit the ice cream man when I was like 9 to 13. I tell people I used to have to shop at the Sears Husky kids department, buy elastic corduroy jeans, which was very demoralizing. So I'm not going back there either.
Yeah.
So I hear you on being the chubby kid for a period of time. From a standpoint of 2014, through the pandemic, obviously there was a lot of irrational investing into the meal delivery and the meal prep industry.
Crazy.
So talk about maybe one, how you kind of combated that either psychologically, but also from like a company standpoint. And then also, after you go through that, tell us what it's like to like run a business. And then, because this happens in our industry all the time, where somebody comes in and throws $100 million into some company where you're like, dude, I have no idea where they're going to spend it. I don't know how these guys got the money, terrible investment thesis, whoever made it, but I got to compete with $100 million that some irrational company has.
Yeah, I think there was so we got in on, I'll call it the big wave, right? Where it was all these meal kit companies. So you had HelloFresh, you had Blue Apron, and tons of capital and burning tons of capital. And it was just crazy where their average order value was like $60 back then. Their CAC was friggin' crazy, hundreds of dollars, and their LTV was basically a month, right? So from that standpoint, they'd go trial, but they had the big money on marketing budgets. So it's, again, I think just from, I'll call it experience in my past, it's not, you can't just throw endless money, right? It's not, a lot of people were looking at it to me as sort of that tech rush again, right? Trying to get those big multiples and, hey, when we get the money, then we'll figure it all out. But from our standpoint, from day one, we did this a little bit differently. We didn't go and raise a bunch of capital up front. It was mainly funded by myself and a couple smaller people, but we haven't still raised any huge amounts of money, right? So from that standpoint, it was important to be able to run the business out of cash and keep that going. So that meant for us not going to, let's say, the big grocery guys and stuff right at the start, right? Because a lot of those, when we had those discussions, they wanted 60, 90, 120-day terms. And I can't afford to get paid once every quarter or whatever. So
yeah, sure.
We were more picky that way. We built a sort of direct to consumer. We tried to do some different partnerships differently. We built what I'll call a pretty decent wholesale size business for us. When I say wholesale, smaller retailers and stuff in different markets. And that really, we use that as, I'll call it, a marketing arm. So let's say in Victoria, Texas, or wherever, there's different bunch of army bases, et cetera. But instead of going and spending all this money on Facebook ads and other things, right, it's really going and building local partnerships to build brand in those areas. And over time, that's paid off for us. But again, it was having to watch where that capital came in and sort of watch where that capital went out, right? So if you notice, one of the first office we had, it was, I think I had 2 homes at that time, and one of it was supposed to be furnished by my house. Then all of a sudden my dining room table would disappear. It would be our boardroom table and different things. Right. So again, I think it's always been that way, though. We've never been real frugal and stuff. But again, you have to have that mentality, I think. And I don't know, it's, again, taking, I'll call it calculated risks for me, but risks that I don't know. I look at risk a little bit differently than many other people I know, just because I believe that we control sort of that risk if I'm going to bet on myself. So being able to, I'll call, budget appropriately, and also just in regards to where we had our ad spend and stuff. For us, it was never, I don't know, throw it out there and a ton of money on cold market spend and hope it will come, right? It was more calculated. We built this company. We've never had salespeople. So I built this company on the B2B side more through affiliates and our partnerships. And those are more relationships. I'm a big person on relationships. That's how I built most of my businesses and most of the larger deals for us, and always sort of networking. And so I'm trying to use that kind of, I'll call it intellectual capital, and really relationship capital rather than just money.
One thing to just highlight for our audience here, when you go to a grocery store and you see something, let's just say it's I'm looking at like a facial cream right now by Ponds, Ponds, and they've got this little, let me bring it up. We got this thing right here, right? So like this thing's like $10, right? So there's probably $4 of like advertising dollars that are basically being recouped, in every unit, if you will. So I'm just thinking through what you just articulated, and like by going the B2B channel, by basically having enough margin for whoever's ultimately selling it, have enough margin for yourself. There's several dollars of, call it like cost that doesn't need to be passed on as revenue for yourself and the consumer paying for it, because you guys have negotiated a B2B deal that they benefit from in actual list price or sale price. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate.
I haven't really thought about that before. But
I think also one thing that probably a lot of people don't realize is that in food, you don't have these huge margins, right? If you're in the supplements, you got whatever, 80, 90%, there's all that margin, right? So one thing that we've also done is we built a functional food line. And that functional food line sort of offsets the cost, and you really have to understand your business, because if you do have these limited margins on X, you still need to be overall, I'll call it, making sure that the boat stays afloat, right? So from that standpoint, by having our functional food line, our protein popcorn and other stuff, it allowed us to then build a little bit more margin and offer some of those terms to some of our CPG retailers and business to business corporate accounts, which has helped us on cash flow as well. So
yeah. So let me, I know probably how you're going to react to this, but I just came to my mind. What are your thoughts when someone says to you, hey, let this product be a loss leader? Does that get you like prickly and like
because the loss leaders to me is someone has a bunch of cash that they're trying to do different things, or they're using someone else's cash and it's not their own cash, right? So from that standpoint, I'm not a big fan of that term, because we can't afford those loss leaders, right? So we need to plug those holes before they become a loss leader. And we're constantly looking at, people always say, hey, what's your best meals, your best products and stuff? I'm like, all that you see on this menu that I'm providing to you, or the list, are going to be our best, because they don't have time to not be our best, right? So we're going to constantly be doing A/B testing and a bunch of different things to get those cycles and proper product out of there.
There's a place in New York City, they took they had this awesome meatball wrap. It was healthy, and they somehow took it off the menu. I'm like, how come no one checked with me? I buy this thing like 4 days a week. Like, where's the customer surveys on this? Talk to us about. You come down to Texas, you start this company. It's kind of like a passion project, hobby. It's obviously done well in other ventures. You're not a guy that looks like he wants to lose money on his hobby, but still want to make money on my hobby as well. How do you think about building a team when you could probably do a lot of things yourself?
Yeah, I think it's important. Any company that I've always had, it's not about me. I'd say I have certain skills, and I don't know, I call it John Maxwell's law of the lid, right? You get so far, and then you're going to hit this lid, and you really need to expand that lid to go to the next level. And the next level has always been for me and my other companies is you got to build the team. The team is what builds the business, and you need to surround yourself with people that have more expertise and more experience in different areas and complement what you don't have. And that's one thing I've always tried to do. I hear a lot of people all the time, oh, I'm not going to pay him this or her this or that because it's more than me. Well, great. I'm probably one of the lower paid people here, right? But again, it's you got to look at investing in that team, because those people, and you want to build a culture. It's not just people. It's not putting a bunch of people in place that have a bunch of egos. It's really putting people in place that sort of align with that culture and that vision, and then are also almost like a bunch of entrepreneurs within that organization that you want to all have, I'll call it, have the same vision. So your real goal of that, at least in my mind, is to build that vision, allow them to work within that vision, right, and carry their own vision and piece forward. But you have to keep that constantly moving forward. And I think that's one of the biggest things, but I'm big about building the culture and the good people for a good team.
Yeah. And if you can think back to 2014, or just think about some of the companies you've had and you've run, did you make any mistakes that you would say, you know what, I hired a CFO and I should have hired, a COO, or I should have hired somebody, for quality control and not for new business development, because I could do that. So give us maybe, obviously everything's, in isolation as it is at any time. But give us how you thought about that, or things that you want to could go back and do again.
I think early on, the first companies that I didn't really have, so I focused more on, I'll call it developers, right? A bunch of developer people. And I was sort of that sales arm, because that's what I did. I didn't really have a product until we created that product, right? And then as that evolved, because I was the one from the funeral industry, I saw things that what I believed as problems, and we built solutions for those. So then the next thing was, okay, at a certain level, now you do need CFO, right? Or you do, not a CFO, but I'll call it like a CFO to me in many minds is someone who's sitting in this ivory tower and just sort of builds these models and different things, right? I want someone to really be able to work in the trenches with me. We built models, I'll call it, hey, let's look at this. What if we do this? What if we add this brick on here? What does that get us, right? Or what if we cut costs here, et cetera? And it's always, to me, I want a team that's working on the fly. So I've made some bad decisions, including in this business, like just, I'll call it recently, right? Get bigger. You want to hire this CFO. We've hired contractors and stuff. And I get different things that aren't what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone that still wants to be that entrepreneur, right? I want them to own it, take control. One thing that probably shame on me and bad for me sometimes, I'm not a big micromanager. I tell people I want to enable them, I'll empower them, I want to trust them, right? And it's come back to bite me, but that's how my management style is. And again, I've had a battle right now over the past couple of years here with trying to find the right CFO / person, right? It's I don't know, one person in here, we used a huge staffing firm, won't get into it and stuff, but I had him, the first one was crazy. It was like a 7-day nightmare. It was like changing journal entries and changing all this crap. And I was like, what the hell? Anyways, hired this other one after that run for a couple months. They were here for about 2 months. And all of a sudden it's like, I go in there one day and he's playing World of Warcraft. This is a guy that's almost 60 years old, right? And so I've learned a lot of lessons in regards to, I want to believe in them and I want to believe in all my people that they're going to do right. But I have learned as well, you need to sort of hire slow and fire quickly. And that's the biggest, one of my biggest, I'll call it lessons over my years of wanting to believe that people are better than what they are, and not just moving on. So
Dave and I wrote a book over COVID called Time to Win Again. And it's 52 takeaways from team sports to ensure your business success. You're going to love it because we talk about hire twice a year. Don't just like whoever's left is like next man up. Treat your employees like professional athletes. Give them the ability to do what they need to do, and perform on the ice. Make sure they got all the tools and they can get coached up. So Dave, we'll send Todd a book. You're going to love
that. Yeah.
And it's got caricatures in it also, so it's an easy read. From a standpoint of the sign you have behind you, which says your life is 100% your responsibility, is that something that somebody gave to you? Is that something you tell people? Is that something you needed to like remind yourself of?
No, I had a quote that I kept saying like this. So one of my employees, my COO, actually put that in here. But for me, it is, right? Because I've never been handed anything. And I think it's from that. It's like I have all these people that say, oh, my life's so hard and this. And I'm like, compared to what, right? You're holding the pen that writes the chapters to your life and you can change it at any time. And I think so many people go from not having an accomplishment or not doing this or that to becoming the victim. And we saw so much of that over COVID, right? But from that standpoint, I'm a big proponent on that. Like, you want to make change, then you got to change. Like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again. I see so many people living Groundhog Day each and every day, right? But
I've been to Groundhog Day twice, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But we went as friends, not to relive any victim status. So talk to me as we kind of close here on our first Halo talk. You're based in Texas. What's your reach look like? We got an audience here. A lot of them are studios and gyms. Historically, selling ready-to-made meal plans or pickup drop-off hasn't had the success in the clubs and the studios as we would have thought. Maybe some of that's because of the execution that has not been executed on. But what are your thoughts on that? And would you recommend groups that are in the Halo sector, bricks and mortar, getting in contact with you, and why?
Yeah, I think it's a great add-on, depending on what kind of clubs. We work with quite a few clubs right now, small, and we've worked with large that get in names. We do a lot with corporate as well. And I think it is, if you look at the model and you implement it right, there can be substantial additional revenue, right? There's a lot of crap out there today, so it's not apples to apples. It's, I don't know, we buy a lot of crap as well, right? Spend probably $3,000 to $4,000 of other people's product on a monthly basis just to see what's out there. But from that standpoint, it's really understanding and looking at what you want to do, looking at working with a partner that meets your needs. Like, all our product is vacuum sealed, right? So it's one of the biggest things for clubs is shelf life, right? But extended shelf life. Again, don't get into bed or work with anyone that's not a USDA inspected facility. They live with us. We've been under inspection for 5 years. And again, make sure your vision is aligned sort of with what their goals are. It's not but again, you want to be able to have someone that is that reliable, trusted partner for your end clients, whether it be corporate or whether it be in the club, right? And leave with that sense of a quality product, because that's what you're providing is quality service or whatever to your client. So I think it is great. And then the functional foods add huge margin to that average order value. How again, a lot of our clubs put it on a subscription basis. So I think there's a ton of benefits. Our current capacity here, we can do probably about 200 to 250,000 meals a week out of this facility. We have additional expansion capacities. We do also some in the co-manufacturing space and private label for some other companies that are much bigger than us, which many of your listeners will probably know the brands, but we do that as well on a very sort of strategic opportunity as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so we got one quote from you here on the your life's 100% your responsibility. Any other quotes that we should put into our quote library from you, Todd?
I think a lot of people here in business, they always tell me, hey, it's okay, I'll do this or I'll do that when the time's right, when it's perfect, right? And I say, look, there's no such thing as perfection, right? There's never going to be a perfect time. So I always tell people, hey, it's better is perfect, right? Better, I try to be better in every area of my life than that, just 1% a day. And if you can do that, that's the closer you're going to get to being perfect. And I guess the last thing I'd say is, I tell people all the time, I live an excuseless life, right? I don't even know if that's a word, but from that standpoint, I don't know. You're either buying or selling your own excuses. So make that choice. And like I said, take it as your responsibility and get after it and take massive action. You'll have the results you want.
Awesome. All right. Well, in closing here, be an icon. Todd, welcome to the industry. I'm glad you're working on keeping people alive, healthy, and well. And as George Carlin used to say, like, I want to go sliding into the casket because I got everything done. And I wore my body to the best use. So, Awesome, man. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it, Pete.
It was fun.